I hope everybody stick around and learn something, because we got a new version of racing that maybe we haven't seen in recent years, to the standard that this young man right here and his group is building.
And to amplify that, we're going to start with a video that Dustin sent us, that we're going to share with the audience. So let's roll the video, and then you'll take over, Jeff.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What are we here for?
Well, we're here to win the Derby, of course.
This has been a motorsport that has been built on the backs of the average Joe.
The caliber of drivers here is unbelievable.
It's just a different level.
Every one of those cars out there is capable of winning.
The amount of people that we have involved from top to bottom is bigger than any other motorsport out there.
It's not what they think it is.
The talent is just off the chart.
It's a whole different ball game.
Underway with the King class.
You want to whine and cry, come up and tell me straight up.
Yeah.
The fuck off.
What my place is, inspect your car. Fair shake, get your car and call them.
The big three with JT, Chad, and Pete, they felt the pressure.
If I get beat, well, I got beat by Chad Markley or Pete Hansen. You know, if I win, I beat Pete Hansen or Chad Markley.
I'll work all night if I have to. Down to the big three.
Fuck yeah, baby!
If King of Ohio was a 10, Bristol's going to be a 12.
When the green flag drops, I look for the toughest car.
I mean, it's going to be wide open. It's going to be hard hitting.
It's going to get rowdy, but that's all right. That's what we're here for.
The last member of the big three here in the King class.
Everybody's got bills and problems and issues. And if I put the helmet on, all that stuff goes away.
The stakes for Bristol are so high, and we have to get it correct. We have to get it right.
You can look all you want because there's nothing there. That's fine. But
I tell you, you ask me, I tell you.
The road to Bristol is the ultimate journey to the ultimate stage.
I don't like to say it, but I'm above the rest of my competition.
You really want to know the hardest thing on his shoulders? Me.
Fucking soul, you little motherfucking bitch!
You give me a challenge, I'm not going to turn it down.
Somebody's got to win, and I didn't come here for it to be them.
There's only one winner, and we're going for that top spot.
Everybody feels the emotional impact of every moment.
I don't recommend it for most because it affects your life.
When you look around and your daughter's 25, got a grandkid, and you're like, man, I've been in the garage my whole life.
This is what I think about, and this is what I do when I'm not at work or with my family. This is what we do.
We don't do all this for just fun. The fun's been gone a long time ago, I think.
White, the intro, I'd say, Mr. Woods, Dustin Woods, is with us here, and this is kind of like your baby. And as you and I were talking earlier, this is not your average. I'll call it fairground. Go to the junkyard, get you something, and go to play demolition derby. You guys are gladiators, and you're going to war each and every time you unload these vehicles to come out on top. And again, it's not a matter of going crazy. What I've seen and what I've been able to ascertain, you better have some strategy at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to start off by this is an honor, Jeff. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Huge NASCAR fan, so had to get that in. But this is about creating a sport, and it's not just a sport; it's a combat motorsport, and we want that to be synonymous with what we do. And think of it as the UFC with cars. Everybody's pretty familiar with demolition derbies. It's been around for 40, 50 years. I'll tell you, in our world, we've been itching and kind of, really begging to get some recognition. And so what we did is about a year ago, we got we took a page out of NASCAR, we took a page out of PBR with professional bull riding, and a little bit of UFC thrown in there. And we decided to create our own organization called Demo, and it stands for Demolition Entertainment Motorsports Organization. We signed a bunch of drivers across the country to come compete at these shows and kind of showcase their talent. It's the best drivers, that we have to offer. As you know, with anything, it's been a unique transition from a hobby to a sport. And I don't want to say you weren't necessarily involved in the early days of NASCAR, but I'm sure you were a fan, right? Waltrip and that air, you guys you saw like tremendous growth. Well, we're we're probably like 60s, 70s NASCAR, right? We're waiting for our big moment, that big fight, on the backstretch moment. It's,
I'm about to lose your fight on the back straight away. All
y-
right.
yeah. So we're there, but we're organized now, and we're excited for what the future holds here.
With all that being said and what I witnessed, I think, why did you decide to do it this way? I mean, because when I read a little further as far as, the rules and how you start creating your vehicle, and you talk about the money you can wind up spending on one of these cars, um, you're building a used race car to go out and win an event. You're not, creating a brand new one to tear it all to pieces, but at the same time, the restrictions. You can't plate the front frames. They've only going to be so long you can have as far as the front bumper is concerned or a rear bumper is concerned. Nobody's going to have an advantage, is what I'm trying to say. You build it to where there's restrictions and there are rules, but then there's no rules. Am I wrong? But if you can figure out how to disable your competition, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, so preparing your car, there are a strict set of rules. You are preparing it for combat. But like with anything, you got motorsports, money, and guys. Guys are going to push it. They're competing. So, there is some, we call it competing rather than cheating, as I'm sure you're probably familiar with that term. That these guys, try to hide things. So there is a stringent inspection process. When you get to the track, there are some, I don't want to say if there's more unwritten rules than there is rules. You're in combat. So, one of the things that you do want to do is avoid the driver's door. You don't, that's kind of like an unwritten rule. You don't want to hurt your competition. You don't necessarily want to go out and roll people. It's kind of, you're kind of looked at as a bad apple, right? Or someone you don't want to compete with if you're out there rolling people, putting people in harm's way. But besides that, I mean, everything's legal. The goal of this is to beat your competition. You got to make contact every minute, and when you can't make contact is, when you get timed out, or you got a stick on your pillar that you can, signal to the competition when you break your stick that, hey, you are no longer in the competition.
Now, with those things that you just brought up, as far as making contact with the fellow competitor, and at the same times about the rules and how you are, govern this event. How is that done? Are you the main guy? Do you have a designated race director? Do you have how does that play out? It's like with NASCAR, we got one guy that kind of like calls everything, but you have a series of other people that are watching and seeing what's going on in communication with the race director. Does that work that way?
Yeah, it works the same way. We're not here to try to recreate the wheel. We look at everything that you guys have done and put in place, and we kind of copycat the whole thing. You have we have a competition director, or maybe there's like a head wall guy. We got radios that we communicate on. We've got stopwatches. We put them on, but everyone's in constant communication. Hey, this guy's on the clock. We even have signals that we communicate to the drivers. Sometimes the drivers don't know if they're on the clock or if that hit count, if that took them off the clock. So we have different signals, much like, basketball does with reset the shot clock and things like that we communicate to the drivers with.
Okay, you said something there, being able to communicate with the drivers. Do the drivers have spotters or is that not allowed? And secondly, when you say your own a clock or anything like that? How do you communicate that with them? And you also made a comment of if that was a legal hit. Can you explain those things?
Yeah, so we're in a progressing sport right now. So the spotter thing is not something that as a sanctioning body we enforce or talk about. We do know that people do it, probably to their advantage to have a little headset in there and communicating on what's going on around the track. We don't necessarily enforce it. I imagine here real soon we're going to have to make a decision on that, and either allow that to be a thing or not. What was your next question there?
You said making a hit.
Oh,
No, you say you got to make contact. If that hit was, made it sound like what is a legal hit? What does that mean?
so a legal hit means you have to engage in the contact. So you can't just be sitting there and then your opponent like hit you and like hit you into another car. That's not you engaging in the contact. So you can engage in contacts a number of different ways. I mean, you could spin the car around and hit somebody. You normally, right, it's the front or the rear bumper that you're engaging in contact with. But contact is contact, and as long as you're engaging in it, operating the vehicle, to initiate it, you're good.
You talk about the infancy of the sport, and it's kind of like going through its growing pains. Do you have a governing body or any way to where, say, for example, I'm doing what I think is right, and you say no, you're not doing it right? Do you have the option to have a challenge? And if so, how does that work? And again, if you don't have one, well, I mean, that's like a lot of places you go to the race. You run the race, and afterwards, you negotiate or you discuss, who's right, who's wrong, and you guys make the decision, the final decision.
That's a very unique circumstance too. So at Bristol, as you saw with the video, we were able to run our first event under demo at Bristol Motor Speedway this past October. We had the opportunity to do some very unique things there, and we used our pay-per-view as well as Colossus to review a couple calls at the end of the Derby. Typically, that's going to be at the end of the Derby, the finishing call, the first, second place type deal rather than throughout the Derby. But we were able to implement those things, and we're kind of at the forefront of being able to do those things, and we're pretty proud of it.
I mean, I applaud you for taking your warriors and bringing them to the last great Coliseum when you talk about Bristol, because Bristol's one of my favorite racetracks. And, it just seems very apropos that if you're going to have an association like yours, that you would start there. And this would be, in my opinion, if you had an opportunity to come back and have your grand finale at a place like that, that would be the correct place to go. Not saying it's the only place you can go, but I just love anything that comes out of the Bristol environment. I mean, it's just so unique to itself. The guys that you've got signed to be your drivers and to be, to try to build your superstar base with, what are the requirements? And as far as age and skill ability, what are the constraints there?
There's not too many constraints. We're kind of at the forefront of creating paths to get into the sport and where to start and stop. I've listened to a lot of conversations with you guys over the past couple days, and we need to establish that. We are fortunate enough right now to have about 2,500 events, demolition derbies across the country already. It's just a fractional. It's just fractioned out. There's different promoters that run different sections of the country. So there was really never been a true, hey, if you're going to get into the sport, you start at the county fair or you start, in this youth class. Youth classes have just become a thing, and it's really good for the sport. It's still a little bit, I guess, fractionalized across the country. But we're getting there. We're taking steps to show, hey, this is what we do. This is where you start, and here's the path to the top. And with demo, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create that path to the top.
So as you look into 2025, what kind of schedule have you got laid out right now? And during in the course of running the schedule, will you encourage your drivers to follow the schedule and run for a championship? Will that be part of the 2025 plan?
We haven't quite got into the championship stuff yet. What we do, and the reason why is because we need to find money in our sport. We need to find exposure and money and really get people to understand what we do. So we've got 2, possibly 3 events that are going to be big events scheduled for 2025. We start out in June. We'll likely be back in Bristol in October, and then we'll fit something in between that will go likely out west. And but it's important to know that we're connected to almost all of these shows, these 2,500 shows across the nation. We got drivers, under demo that are from North Dakota to New York. We're all across the country, so these guys will compete in other shows. They won't just compete under ours. I will tell you that probably will surprise a lot of people is the money that is currently in the sport. I mean, at Bristol, we had 2 classes that ran for $100,000 to win each, which is a considerable amount when the normal or average person says, "Oh, you guys are just crashing cars. Oh, you're just knocking the windows out of cars." It's really not that. These guys have $40,000-$50,000 in their cars. They spend months building them, and we make sure we reward them at our big events.
And I'm glad you said that because there again, I read the release, but I was just real curious if everybody owned their own car and if their cars that they were building, would still meet your requirements for 2025, if there'd been any rule changes at the same time. So
Yeah, we update rules. Over the winter here, we'll update rules. But they do own their own cars. These cars are, I don't want to say they come straight off the street, but a lot of them do. I mean, that where they strip them down to bare frame, bare body, and they add, a cage. I mean, one of the neat additions to these cars is that we wrap everything in like 1-inch steel, half-inch armored plate steel or 1-inch steel, the motors, the trannies, the drivetrains, all of that, because it's built for combat, right? So we do a lot of aftermarket stuff. One of the neat things that we take from you guys is as we run now that NASCAR has switched over to the single lug nut, we pretty much buy every single spindle that you guys are not throwing away. So we run all your guys' aftermarket spindles, hubs, all of that stuff.
So you use NASCAR wheels?
Not NASCAR wheels, but the spindle in the hub. Yeah, we built our own rims.
What keeps you from doing the wheels?
They need to be built up. So if you saw one of our wheels, we do something called bead locks. So we basically put like a 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch bead lock on the outside of the car or outside of the tire, and that pinches the bead and to make sure that the tire doesn't just rip off. So there's a considerable amount of effort that goes into building those tires.
So you are building them like Sherman tanks, even though they look like 65 Ramblers.
Yeah, you would be very surprised at the effort and the time and the engineering that essentially goes into this sport.
Well, that was one of the things when I was watching the video and some of the footage that you had captured of these guys working on their race cars and building them. And I also was interested in the fact that that you're not going to allow somebody to put chassis paint over to hide something. Everything's got to be pretty much bare metal, and when you can easily tell what modifications have been made and what modifications are legal versus the ones that are illegal. So I think you've gotten inside the head of a racer. A racer is always going to ask for forgiveness or beg for forgiveness and ask for permission. So if they can think they can get by with it, if for one race, they're going to run it up the flagpole.
Yeah, that is absolutely what these guys do. Again, like you said, it's we learn from you guys, honestly. You know, we've taken a page. I would say, venture to say, nearly everybody in our side of motorsports is a NASCAR fan or some type of motorsport dirt track fan.
The one thing I did notice, it doesn't like you have any kind of requirements as far as fire suits or anything. Is that something as you move forward that you'll feel like it's necessary, and then onboard fire extinguishers or anything like that required?
Yeah, Jeff, it is, and we're leading the way, in that. Um, you ever dealt with a bunch of stubborn guys that don't want to change, that have been doing it their way for a while?
Well, again, and like I say, I've lived around the sport long enough to know to say yes. I've been through the argument about whether you need to run fuel cells. I've been through the argument of whether you're going to run a fire extinguisher that won't put out a match. What good is it inside the race car? Just because you tell me. I mean, you have to tell and make something mandatory rules before they understand. If you want to race, there are the rules. The rest of it's not debatable. We wrote the rule book. You have the option. You agree or you go somewhere else. And I think that's a lot of times, if you want to build something bigger and better, just like what NASCAR has done, or any other, really upper echelon series, just remember, you are the game and the ball is yours. So, you have to call the shot and let them decide, would you rather have 5 or 6 guys telling you how your rules need to be run, or would you rather have some guys in there that everybody knows that guy doesn't have an advantage over me scenario? And that's just coming from being old school.
Yeah, well, there's so many similarities with your guys' sport, and what you grew up in to what we're doing now, and that is exactly it. I do think we have a group of guys under demo that are willing to push things forward, and adopt rule regulations. The biggest thing that I say all the time to these guys is a lot of rule regulations are written in blood, and they're written in blood by the biggest superstars. And the last thing we want to do is go to a track and have something happen to one of our stars, that
Yeah.
you look back on and you make changes. It's happened in every motorsport, as you know, and um, just that
It's called
reminder.
growing pains. It's called a growing pains. And again, when you start off on one of the biggest stages that you can dream of, like Bristol, as far as a big, coming out deal, paying, like I say, over $200,000, to the winners. That's pretty impressive in its own right. And I think it shows the rest of the world that you're serious about what you're wanting to do and accomplish. And I think there again, you tell me where you can go race for $100,000 any other place. It's got a similar program like yours. I mean, I think again, that's when you take the step back and say, do you really want to argue about what we think is necessary to make our sport safe and competitive? That's the way I look at it. And the follow-up question on that would be, what do you have in the plans for the future? I mean, you talk about 2025 and you're working on stuff there. Does that include, streaming or recording any of your races? How are you going to handle that as you move out? And then what do you see the future in 5 and 10 years down the road for your association?
Yeah, so we actually work with Speed Sport currently, under a subset, derbynation.tv, in which we do our pay-per-view on. It's awesome pay-per-view. Those guys have treated us great. One of the neat things that we were able to do, we realized that content is king, and we need to get our content out there. We need to educate a lot of people. So we want to find, and we're very interested in pursuing not only partners or sponsors, to come in and showcase our sport and kind of build our brand, but investors, right, on the back end that have kind of went through the trials and tribulations, whether it's NASCAR guys, whether it's UFC guys, WWE guys. I feel like we all, maybe the PBR guys, we all have similar stories. And I think we can really relate this story that we're talking about here to those different groups. So we're on the pursuit of that. And that would skinny down a 5-year game plan, maybe into a 2-year game plan. Because we can do it. We can do it on our own. It's just going to take 5-10 years to really get to where we want. And, we want to catch a break. We want someone to come in and believe and see the product and say, look, these guys really are the UFC with cars. This is pretty neat. And although it's different, this is very entertaining.
Well, Dustin, all I can say is hopefully a little bit like EPARTRADE here and what Racer and Speed Sport has done the last 5 years to grow this organization where it is. Maybe this is your break here with us to let everybody know around the country that you guys have got a new game in town. And as I said earlier, it's very similar to a lot of other things, but it stands on its own 2 feet, a little different than everybody else's.
Well, I appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate the platform. Real big fan, and just want to thank everybody for giving us the time.
EPARTRADE is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Looking for a quick fix of motorsports news? The Speed Sport Daily is what you need. It's a free racing newsletter delivered directly to your email every day. We'll cover the winners and the losers and tell you who's making news off the track. It's NASCAR, NHRA, World of Outlaw, IndyCar, and so much more. Go to speedsport.com today and get signed up for America's free racing newsletter and get your daily motorsports fix. The Speed Sport Daily.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
Scott Lewis & Associates, the sales, marketing, and branding specialist for the automotive performance industry since 1988. We get our manufacturers on track by opening an extensive distribution network, providing product training to sales staff, creating fully integrated sales and marketing strategies, building successful industry partnerships, attending trade shows, events, and races, offering first-class support to customers. SLAI delivers solutions that win you sales. To get in touch with an SLAI representative, call 516-378-6100. Go to scottlewisinc.com or email info@scottlewisinc.com.
With roots in the Midwest that date back well before the Model T, Fifth Third Bank has a long history of serving the needs of automotive companies. While much has changed over the years, our passion for helping businesses put cars on the road and on the track has not. Today, we are more committed than ever as a member of SEMA, a founding member of PRI, and a sponsor of multiple race teams across several racing series.
For over a decade, Fifth Third Bank has been a staunch supporter of our industry and a great partner for many companies in the motorsports field.
Our business has been growing extremely fast, and really we could not be where we are today without Fifth Third. They provided amazing strategic advice, the capital we need to support our phases of growth.
They are true partners for me now, and what they do with their involvement in motorsports is untouched in this community.
Where can we take your business? Fifth Third Bank.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck with Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
When it comes to pushing the limits of performance, the pros know there's no room for compromise. At Crower Cams, we don't just engineer camshafts and valve train components, we redefine what power means. Since 1955, Crower Cams has been the name trusted by racers, engine builders, and gearheads around the globe. Whether you're building a street machine, a dragster, or a track car, Crower Cams provides the muscle you need to dominate. And with Crower, victory is within your reach.
For over 25 years, Wisconsin-based C-Tech Manufacturing has been engineering and manufacturing the toughest, most accessible aluminum tool drawers, cabinets, carts, and tactical storage solutions for America's hardest working professionals. Whatever you need to store and however you need to store it, put your trust in C-Tech Manufacturing. We build it better. Visit our new website at ctechmanufacturing.com or give us a call at 715-355-8842.
If you're watching this video, you might be wondering, what is WPC? WPC is a surface treatment designed to reduce friction and increase the strength of metal parts. As much as it might seem like a coating, WPC is actually a surface treatment. Think of it like shot painting, but the media is much finer, like talc. So what you're left with is a super hard, smooth surface that actually has some proprietary dry lubricants embedded within it. For more information, visit WPCtreatment.com.